I used to think late nights were harmless, quiet stretches of time where nothing truly bad could happen. I was wrong. The graveyard shift at Walmart taught me that silence can turn on you fast, and shadows feel different when you're the only one standing in them. My name's Noah Byrne. I picked up the overnight shift after my mom lost her job. Money got tight fast, and we both pretended we weren't drowning. She picked up extra hours at a diner. I stocked shelves from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The pay was better at night, but the store always felt too empty at those hours, like the building was holding its breath. The first sign something was wrong showed up on my windshield one night after work, a folded note. At first, I thought it was a receipt or a flyer, but when I opened it, my stomach dropped. Stop walking alone at night. No signature. No context. The handwriting looked like the pen had been pressed too hard. The letters crooked and angry. I told myself it was some dumb prank by a bored coworker and tossed it in my glove box, but something about it stayed with me. 2 nights later, around 1 in the morning, I was unpacking toolkits in the stockroom when Claire Whitman burst in looking terrified. Claire wasn't the type to scare easily, quick-witted, confident, always throwing sarcasm at anyone who deserved it, but her face was pale, and her hands shook around her walkie. "There's some guy following me," she whispered. "Flannel jacket, beard. He's been on every aisle I go to. He keeps asking what time I get off." Her voice was trembling so hard I didn't question it. We walked the floor together, pretending to check tags. The motion lights flicked on one by one, spilling long shadows down the aisles. The quiet made every sound feel louder. When we reached the tool aisle, we saw him. Tall, unkempt beard, cap pulled low. He was holding a wrench, but he wasn't looking at it. His eyes were fixed on Claire with a weird, motionless stare. "Sir," I said, trying to sound calm. "Can I help you find something?" He didn't answer. He set the wrench down without breaking eye contact, then slipped behind the shelves like he'd planned the exit. Claire's breathing went tight. Strange things followed. A dolly rolled out from behind a pallet without anyone touching it. A store phone rang once, then stopped. Claire kept spinning around, convinced she heard footsteps behind her. Everything inside the store felt slightly wrong, like the night had leaned closer. After closing, I walked her to her car. The lot was mostly empty, lights buzzing overhead. That's when I saw the old pickup at the far end, mud on the doors, engine running, headlights off, and through the windshield, the same man, staring at us. I called for security. The guard headed toward him. As he approached, the man started his headlights but didn't move. Before driving off, he turned his head fully toward Claire, holding that dead stare until the truck disappeared into the dark. Back inside, the guard admitted the man had come in earlier asking what time the blonde girl from electronics got off her shift. He'd described Claire exactly. She switched to mornings the next day. I didn't blame her. A week later, I found another note on my windshield. "You shouldn't have stepped in. I don't forget." My hands shook the whole drive home. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't want to add more stress to everything she was already carrying. But that night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house made my chest tighten. Back at work the next night, things felt heavier than usual. I kept looking over my shoulder, listening for things that weren't there. Around 1 in the morning, I heard a soft tapping from the tool aisle. It wasn't the steady hum of machinery, not the settling of shelves too deliberate. I followed the sound. The aisle was colder than the rest of the store. The tapping stopped the moment I stepped in. I turned slowly, ready to see someone standing behind me. Nothing. I was about to walk away when my walkie crackled. A low voice whispered, "Still walking alone." It wasn't Claire. It wasn't security. It wasn't anyone I recognized. I sprinted straight to the security room. The guard checked the cameras. No one in the aisle. No one in the back stockroom. No one near the radios. But the voice had been real. I didn't walk to my car alone that night. I waited until 2 older workers clocked out, then walked out with them, scanning every parked vehicle. I told my mom the next day at least, a version of it. Enough for her to worry, not enough for her to panic. She told me to quit, but we needed the money. Rent didn't care about threats. Later that afternoon, I found Claire in electronics. When I showed her the second note, she grabbed my wrist like I'd handed her a live wire. "We're telling someone," she said. We went to the police station. The officer wrote everything down, promised extra patrols, and told us to stay alert. I left feeling both relieved and stupid, because I knew patrol cars wouldn't change how afraid I was. That night, my dog woke me with her low warning bark. She stood at the window, growling at something outside. I stepped closer and saw a familiar shape across the street, an old pickup. Engine running, lights off. I froze. After a moment, it pulled away slowly, like whoever was inside wanted me to know they'd been watching. The next night, my shift felt like walking into a storm. Around midnight, Claire radioed urgently. "Noah, get to the front. Now." When I reached the checkout lanes, she was staring at the sliding doors. The man stood outside under the buzzing lights, hands in his jacket pockets, staring inside like he was waiting for someone to invite him in. The guard walked out to confront him. Through the glass, I watched their silhouettes. The guard pointed off the property, telling him to leave. The man didn't move at first, then he lifted his head and looked straight at me through the doors. A slow, crooked smile spread across his face. He finally stepped back and walked toward his truck. The guard followed, still talking. At the edge of the lot, the man paused beside his door, leaned toward the guard, and whispered something. Then he drove away. When the guard came back in, his face was pale. "What did he say?" I asked. He said, "I'm not done." The police returned. More statements, more promises, more nothing. But something in me snapped that night. I was tired of being scared. Tired of checking over my shoulder. Tired of feeling hunted. When my shift ended, I walked to my car alone, not out of bravery, but to prove to myself I still could. The night was still and empty. No trucks, no watchers, no notes. The man never came back. Not to the store, not to my street, not to the parking lot. But the fear he left behind stayed with me longer than his truck ever did. Even now, months later, when I walk to my car after dark, the memory of his stare crawls up my spine. I didn't forget either. If something feels wrong, take it seriously. Ask for help, speak up, and protect yourself. Fear isn't a weakness, it's a warning. Ignore it, and you might not get another chance. I never planned on working nights at a Walmart, but that's where the summer of 2018 pushed me. I was 22, drowning in student debt, and drifting through a photography degree that felt more like a slow-motion fall than a future. My mom had remarried, my dad was somewhere between drunk and missing, and I didn't have the kind of support system people talk about in graduation speeches. I had bills, a half-dead car, and a habit of pretending everything was fine. So I took the night shift at Walmart Supercenter #3047 off Riverside Highway in Tulsa. Quiet hours, fewer customers, and hopefully fewer problems. I told myself I could clock in, stack cereal boxes, zone out, and clock back out without my life getting any messier. But nights always bring out the parts of me I try ignoring. The worst one is the old fear of being watched. When I was little, my dad used to disappear for days, and I'd stay alone in a silent house, convinced someone was on the other side of every wall. The fear settled in deep, like a splinter I never quite dug out. Walking into a giant, half-lit store at 1 a.m. brought that feeling back. The hum of the lights, the emptiness of the aisles, the echo of my own footsteps. My skin prickled every night, but I forced myself to adjust. I needed the paycheck more than I needed comfort. By my third week, I told myself I was getting used to it. Then one night I looked up while stocking aisle 17 and froze. He was standing at the end of the aisle, tall and thin, messy blonde hair sticking out under oversized glasses. He wasn't shopping, he wasn't browsing, he was staring at me through the rows of cereal boxes, like he'd been standing there a long time. When I walked toward him, he turned and walked away without a word. I tried to shake it off. You see strange people at Walmart at night. But the next night, he came back, and the night after that, always in aisle 17, always holding the same dented silver thermos, always smiling at me like he knew something I didn't. I told a few coworkers, but they shrugged it off. Night shift brings odd people, one said. Another laughed. At least he's not yelling about coupons. But one older guy, Ron, didn't laugh. He frowned like he recognized the description. "I've seen him around," he said quietly. "Something's off about him. He walks like he's listening to something none of us can hear." That sentence stuck with me. It played in my head every time I felt his eyes from across the aisle. The pattern continued. I'd be stocking shelves, lost in the rhythm of slicing open boxes and lining up products, and suddenly feel the air tighten. I'd turn, and there he'd be half hidden behind a pallet, or standing motionless between two displays, thermos in hand, smiling like we were sharing a private joke. One night he spoke. "You're getting slower, Lena." I dropped a box of cereal. I hadn't told my name to anyone that night, and my name tag was in my pocket. Hearing him say it made the whole aisle tilt. I reported it to the night supervisor immediately. Security checked the footage. Nothing. At the exact time I saw him, the cameras showed aisle 17 completely empty. That was the moment my fear stopped feeling irrational. Something was happening, and no amount of logic made me feel safer. A few days later, while stocking canned soup, I found a note tucked between the cans. "I like watching you work. You remind me of someone I lost." The handwriting looked shaky, rushed, like someone scribbling before they lost their nerve. I brought it straight to the manager. He barely glanced at it before shrugging. "Probably a prank. Don't encourage it." I stood there gripping the note, fighting the feeling that my chest was tightening around my lungs. That night I couldn't sleep. Every memory of my dad whispering nonsense through my bedroom door when he stumbled home drunk clawed its way back. The same tone, the same uneven breathing, the same cold dread spreading through my ribs. The next day, I requested a shift change. They told me they'd look into it, which meant nothing would happen anytime soon. So I went back that night, stomach twisted into knots. A storm had rolled in heavy rain, pounding the roof, air thick with electricity. Around 2 a.m., the lights flickered, then went dark for 3 long seconds. When the emergency lights buzzed on, the store was bathed in a dim red glow, and he was standing right behind me, close enough that I felt his breath on my neck. I turned, and his eyes locked onto mine, wide and bright behind the glasses. "Don't leave me alone again," he whispered. I didn't scream, I just ran. I shoved past pallets, sprinted through the back hallway, and slammed into the break room to hit the alarm. By the time police arrived, he was gone. They searched the store, the restrooms, the backloading bays. Nothing. I walked with them into the parking lot, my legs barely supporting me. Then one officer pointed at my car. Sitting on the hood, neatly placed in the center like a gift, was the silver thermos. It was still warm. I quit the next morning. No hesitation, no 2-week notice. I grabbed my last paycheck and walked out, ignoring the manager calling after me. My older sister, Erin, drove down from Denver the same day. She didn't even wait for me to ask. She loaded me and my bags into her car and drove the entire 8 hours home. I stared out the window the whole ride, feeling like my skin didn't quite fit my body anymore. We moved into her small apartment. I told myself I was safe. I told myself he was unstable, confused, or someone who fixated on me and found a way to slip in and out unnoticed. I told myself the cameras missing him was a glitch. I told myself anything that made the world feel solid again. After a few weeks, I started breathing normally. I picked up a job at a local cafe. I took photos again. I slept without waking up every hour. Life didn't feel perfect, but it felt manageable. A year passed. I didn't think about him every day anymore. Only in the quiet moments. Only when something reminded me of the store, the hum of fluorescent lights, or the shape of a thermos in someone's hand. I never used to admit fear, not even to myself. Growing up, I told everyone I hated loud places, when the truth was the opposite. What I really hated was silence. Silence reminded me of every night after my mother died, when relatives shuffled me through hallways and spare bedrooms, and I'd lie awake hearing nothing but the hum of the house and the ache of being unwanted. Quiet always felt inhabited, like someone or something was listening. By the time I turned 25 in 2009, I had shaped my life around avoiding silence. I worked nights at the Walmart just outside Bentonville. Fluorescent lights, rolling carts, crackling radios, noise I could predict and control. I stocked electronics, TVs, DVD players, video game accessories. The work never changed, and for a while, that steadiness felt like safety. But that fall, the store started feeling different. At first, it was small things. A TV static, hissing at 3 in the morning with no one near the remote. Speakers crackling like someone whispering too close to the mic. Boxes settling at impossible angles. None of it was enough to talk about, but it chipped at that sense of predictable noise I depended on. Then one night, I found something shoved behind one of the bigger TV boxes. At first glance, I thought it was trash or packaging. When I reached for it and pulled it out, my breath stalled in my chest. It was a child's sneaker, tiny, red and white. Cartoon characters faded nearly to nothing. It looked old, decades old. The rubber sole was yellowed, the laces brittle, dust clung thick to the seams, a chill crawled across my shoulders. Nothing about it made sense. This model of TV had only been on display a couple months, and lost kids didn't lose shoes behind televisions. I placed it on a lower shelf and told myself I'd turn it in at customer service, but every time I glanced over, it felt like the shoe was waiting, watching, as if I'd returned something it had been missing. I shook it off. 2 nights later, just before closing, the weirdness started escalating. It was 9:47 p.m. I remember because I kept checking my watch, counting down the last stretch of the shift. I was stalking along aisle 23 when I heard footsteps behind me, soft, slow steps, the kind supervisors make when they hope to catch you leaning on the cart instead of working. Without turning around, I said, "I'm moving, Hargrove. Just cutting boxes." Silence. The footsteps stopped, but no one answered. I finally turned. The aisle was empty. A faint draft brushed past me, cold enough to feel through my long sleeves. The overhead lights flickered, humming louder as if struggling to stay on. Walmart lights do that sometimes, but this felt intentional. I crouched to place a soundbar on the shelf when I heard something else so faint I thought I imagined it. Whispering. It wasn't coming from the sales floor or intercom. It was coming from the storage closet halfway down the aisle. The closet was always locked. Employees didn't go in unless they had a key. Yet now the door wasn't shut, it was cracked open just enough to show a slice of darkness. The whispering grew clearer as I approached. It was a high voice, the pitch of a small child, but too muffled to form words. My hand hovered over the handle. "Hey, whoever's in there, you can't be hiding. We're closing." The whispering stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt heavy, like something waiting on the other side of that door. Then the door shifted, not swinging open, just widening the crack, slow and deliberate. Through that narrow opening, an eye stared at me, brown, wide, unmoving. At first, my brain tried to put a normal explanation on it. A kid hiding, a prank, a reflection. But something in me recognized it. Not the eye itself, but the expression behind it. It looked exactly like the way my mom used to peek through my bedroom door to check on me. A still, soft watchfulness. Protective and eerie all at once. My blood turned cold. The eye blinked, one slow drag of the eyelid. I stumbled backward, hitting a stack of printers. Boxes crashed to the floor. When I looked back, the crack was closed. No movement, no whisper. My hands shook as I went to find Mr. Hargrove. He was near the stockroom entrance, clipboard in hand, reading inventory numbers. "There's someone in the closet on aisle 23, I said. I heard whispering. I saw someone staring back. He raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "We don't have kids wandering closets at closing time. I'm serious." The door opened by itself. He sighed, like I'd asked for Christmas off. "If you're tired, clock out early. Otherwise, stop making stories and finish the aisle." "Stories?" I snapped. "Something's in there." "Logan," his tone cut sharp. Enough. I knew that tone too well. Growing up, that tone meant, don't ask questions, don't make noise, don't be inconvenient. So I shut up and walked away. When I returned to aisle 23, my stomach dropped. The shelves I had fully stocked were destroyed. DVD players pushed forward at odd angles. Boxes knocked off entirely. Headphones tangled. Display cords unraveled across the floor. Someone or something had dragged their hands along everything. And on the gleaming tile floor, dusty footprints. Not adult footprints. Not teenage sneakers. Bare feet. Small, child-sized, leading directly to the closet. My mouth went dry. Despite everything in me screaming to walk away, I opened the closet door again. It was empty, but something lay in the center of the floor, a folded sheet of paper. My hands trembled as I knelt and picked it up. The page was softened with age. Pencil lines bled through the back. When I unfolded it, my breath left me completely. It was a drawing from my childhood sketchbook, one I'd lost more than 10 years earlier during a rushed move. My messy spaceship, my crooked stars, my mom's name in the corner, her handwriting teaching me how to sign it just right. Wrapped in the drawing was that same tiny sneaker. I whispered, "No, this isn't possible." As I stepped backward out of the closet, the overhead announcement chimed. "Attention Walmart shoppers, our store will be closing in 10 minutes. Lights around the store began dimming row by row. A cold breath, not wind, not air conditioning, pressed against my ear. A voice followed, soft, gentle, familiar. "Still awake, Logan?" My mother's voice, That was the moment terror finally outweighed disbelief. I ran. I sprinted across the empty grocery section, pushed through the employee doors, and stumbled into the warm Arkansas night air. I didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands shook so badly I missed the keys twice trying to unlock the door. When I finally looked back at the store through the huge glass entrance, my body went rigid. A small shadow stood at the far end of aisle 23, still, watching, head tilted, almost curious. I stared until my eyes blurred, but the shadow didn't move. 2 weeks later, I quit. I didn't give a long explanation. I didn't owe one. Some people leave jobs because they find something better. I left because something found me. Years later, I still avoid that store at night. When I drive past, I don't look straight at the building. Sometimes, especially on rainy nights, I see motion through the windows. Something small, low to the ground, moving between aisles as if repeating a loop. Occasionally, one of the TVs still flickers to static as I pass, even though it should be impossible to see that far. Maybe what happened was a hallucination, stress, lack of sleep, buried grief surfacing. But deep down, I know the truth. Something was in that closet. It knew my name. It knew my past. And it wanted me to hear it. Fear used to embarrass me. Now, I understand something I wish someone had told me as a kid. Asterisk. Fear isn't always weakness. Sometimes fear is your last warning. When something feels wrong, really wrong, trust yourself and walk away. Your instincts exist to protect you, not to be ignored. Asterisk. But I convinced myself he was gone. Then one afternoon, I checked the mail and found an unmarked envelope. No return address. No stamp. Someone had dropped it off by hand. Inside was a single Walmart receipt. Walmart Supercenter #3057. Riverside Highway, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dated last week. Scrawled across it in shaky handwriting were 3 words. Found you again. My vision tunneled. My hands went cold. The envelope slid from my fingers. I hadn't told him where I lived. I hadn't posted online about moving. I hadn't gone back to Tulsa. The only explanation was that he followed me here, or he'd been watching long before I realized it. I walked inside, locked every door, and sat on the kitchen floor trying to force my breathing to slow down. Aaron found me like that 10 minutes later and immediately called the police. They took the envelope, filed a report, and told me to stay alert. They promised to patrol the area, but they couldn't do much without a name, a face, or evidence beyond a warm thermos and a receipt. That night, I slept in Aaron's room with the light on. Neither of us pretended this was normal. I don't know if he came to Denver. I don't know if someone else left the receipt. I don't know if this is all coincidence or something worse. But I do know that same tightness in my chest from childhood, the feeling of someone on the other side of the wall, has returned. And I don't forget the way he looked at me in the emergency lights, like I belonged to a memory he refused to let die. Sometimes, late at night, when I hear footsteps in the hall outside our apartment, I freeze. I hold my breath. I listen. I hope it's the neighbors. But part of me waits for the sound of a thermos gently tapping against my door. Always trust the feeling that something is wrong. Fear is not weakness, it's a warning. Speak up, seek help, and remove yourself from danger before it grows. Your safety is worth more than staying polite, staying employed, or pretending you're imagining things. Listening to your instincts can save your life. I used to think fear was something you could avoid if you followed the rules, locked your doors, checked your windows, kept to well-lit places. I believed danger was logical, predictable, something you could prevent if you were careful enough. That belief held together until the night I saw a stranger whispering into an unplugged store intercom at Walmart, and felt a kind of fear that had no warning, no explanation, no shape. 6 months before that night, my wife Emma and I moved from Arizona to Grand Junction. We told everyone we moved for the scenery and better jobs, but the truth was simpler. We needed to feel safe again. Back in Arizona, there had been a break-in attempt at 3 in the morning. Our daughter, Lily, woke up screaming while someone rattled our back door. Nothing was stolen, but that didn't matter. After that, Lily slept only with her lamp on. Emma startled at every bump in the night. I pretended I wasn't shaken. But fear has a way of hitching a ride in your bones even when you ignore it. Grand Junction felt quieter, softer. I told Lily this place would be different. Safer. I said it because she needed to believe it. I wanted to believe it too. One December night, Lily's fever spiked. She coughed non-stop, and the sound made my chest tighten. I didn't want Emma out in the cold, so I grabbed the keys and headed to Walmart. The wind had that metallic sting Colorado gets in winter, sharp enough to make your eyes water. The parking lot was almost empty, 6 cars scattered like someone had forgotten them there. Inside, the store was too bright and too quiet. The hum of refrigerators filled the space where people should have been. A few overhead lights flickered like they were struggling to stay awake. I headed for the medicine aisle. Just before I turned down it, I noticed a man standing completely still in aisle 17. Tall, pale, gray, hoodie pulled low. He wasn't shopping, his arms hung at his sides, fingers loose, like he didn't know what to do with them. He faced the shelves of children's night lights, staring at them with a focus that made my stomach tighten. Lily had the same night light at home. I tried to brush it off. People stare at random things all the time. But when I moved to the next aisle, I heard soft footsteps following me. Never close, never far, but steady. When I stopped, they stopped. When I sped up, they did too. I turned suddenly. The man yanked his head toward the shelf, pretending to read labels upside down. His posture was wrong, too stiff, too delayed, too practiced. I forced politeness. You, need something in this aisle? He didn't blink, didn't move. His eyes looked past me, unfocused. A chill crawled up my back. I grabbed the cough syrup and headed toward the front, wanting to get home to Lily as fast as possible. At self-checkout, I held my phone up to scan Apple Pay. Lily's picture on my lock screen lit up. That's when something shimmered in the corner of the freezer glass like a flash reflecting off it. I spun around. The man stood half-hidden behind a cardboard display of leftover Halloween masks. His phone was raised directly at me. No, not at me. At my lock screen. At Lily's face. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. He didn't react. He lowered the phone slowly, like he'd merely been checking the time. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, an off-center, mechanical one, like he was imitating what he thought a smile should look like. Carla, the manager, hurried toward us. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to step away from this area." The man's smile disappeared. He leaned forward slightly. "She looks like the one from the window." Carla froze. "What window?" He didn't answer. He turned and walked away, heading toward the toy section, disappearing behind rows of dolls. Carla looked at me. "You should keep your daughter close tonight." I hadn't told her Lily's name. I hadn't said anything about a daughter. That made my stomach twist. I hurried out of the store. The parking lot felt too open, the darkness too thick. As I approached my truck, I noticed something that stopped me cold. My headlights were on, but I hadn't unlocked the vehicle. The doors were still locked when I checked them. Nothing seemed disturbed, but the lights, that soft glow, made it feel like someone had just stepped away. I looked back toward the store. Behind the Coke vending machine near the entrance, a silhouette stood partly hidden. The shape was motionless, but I could see the faint glow of a phone screen held up, pointed at me. That was enough. I climbed into the truck and sped out of the lot. I kept checking my mirrors, waiting for headlights to match the man's car if he had one. Nothing showed. But silence doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes it means someone already knows where you're going. When I got home, Emma was waiting by the window. "Mark, what happened? You look pale." "Just a weird guy at Walmart," I said. "It's fine." It wasn't fine. Around 11:30, I got a phone notification. "Your photo was added to an album." Faces, I remember. The sender's name chilled me. *D.P. Watching *. Not a name, just initials. The shared album contained blurry, zoomed-in photos of me at Walmart, from behind displays, the end of aisles, between shelves, and in 2 of them, Lily's face on my lock screen was perfectly centered, like he'd taken the pictures for that reason. I denied the request immediately and blocked the sender. But blocking someone doesn't erase the fact that they were close enough to take the shots in the first place. The next morning, I reported everything to Walmart security and the police. They pulled up CCTV footage. I sat there, staring at grainy images of aisles and empty spaces. After a few minutes, the officer said something that made my stomach drop. "Sir, the man you described left the store 20 minutes before you did. He walked out alone and didn't come back." I stared at the screen. "That's impossible." "I saw him by the vending machine." The officer shook his head. "Whoever you saw wasn't the man from inside." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. If the man who photographed me wasn't the same one whispering to the intercom, then more than one person had been watching me. and one of them never appeared on camera. I went home shaken. That night I checked every window, every door, twice. I slept on the couch with a baseball bat nearby. Around 2 in the morning, Lily started screaming, a full terror scream that ripped straight through me. Emma ran to her room. Lily sobbed, saying, "Daddy, the man from the store is at my window." We tried to soothe her, but she kept pointing to the glass like she saw something I didn't. Eventually she fell asleep, but the image of her small hand trembling as she pointed stayed with me. The next morning, I walked along the outside of the house. Beneath Lily's window, the frost on the ground was disturbed small shapes where someone had stood, not deep enough to be clear footprints, but unmistakably compressed. I didn't tell Emma. Some truths only cause panic, and panic doesn't protect people. 2 weeks passed, nothing happened, but the quiet didn't help. It felt like the pause before a door opens. Every night the house felt heavier. Every night Lily woke up saying she saw someone in the dark. I started drinking coffee at midnight, waiting up until sunrise, watching the windows for movement. One night, while taking out the trash, I felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. It was like a pressure in the air, an invisible weight settling on my shoulders. When I lifted the lid of the trash bin, something slid out and landed on the ground. A Walmart receipt, but I hadn't been back since that night. Someone had folded it carefully and wedged it beneath the lid. On the back, written in shaky blue ink, "Asterisk. I remember her too, asterisk." My mouth went dry. My knees nearly buckled, because there was no way to know which man wrote it. The pale one who photographed my phone, or the unseen one who never showed up on camera, or someone entirely different. One thing was clear. Whatever danger I thought I left behind in Arizona had followed me here. It had watched my daughter through a window. It had stood in the shadows of a Walmart. It had taken pictures. It had left a message. Safety wasn't a place, wasn't a promise, wasn't something you could pack into a moving truck. Safety was an illusion, and ours had already been broken. Trust your instincts. They react before your mind collects the evidence, and sometimes they're the only warning you'll ever get. I never thought much about fear until the fall after my divorce. I was 46, living alone for the first time in more than 20 years, working as a school librarian in Bentonville, Arkansas. Life had become routines, quiet mornings, work, church, grocery runs, and evenings spent trying to convince myself loneliness was just another stage of healing. The first time I noticed the black Chevrolet, it was a Sunday afternoon. I was driving home from church. The unmarked sedan fell in behind me at the four-way stop and stayed there for several turns. When I intentionally passed my neighborhood, the car continued to follow before finally turning into a dead-end gravel lot. Nobody got out. Nobody moved. It just idled. I told myself it was paranoia, but the feeling stayed. 2 nights later, October 29th, I needed groceries for a work meeting. The refrigerator was nearly empty, and putting it off meant waking up early, something I wasn't willing to do. I drove to Walmart around 9 p.m., the parking lot nearly empty, rainwater pooling between faded lanes of asphalt. Inside, the store felt too quiet. The loud fluorescent lights made everything look washed out and unsettling. I pushed my cart through produce and dairy, focused on my list. It felt routine until I turned into the canned soup aisle. A man stood at the far end, tall, still, wearing a yellow raincoat and soaked boots, his long hair dripping with water that pooled at his feet. He didn't move, didn't pretend to shop. He just stared. I forced myself to ignore him, grabbed 2 cans, and moved on. When I reached the cleaning aisle, he was there again, closer still, watching. In his hand now was a small black pouch, the size of a police evidence bag. My chest tightened. I reversed the cart and headed toward the front of the store, scanning for employees. A young associate at self-checkout, Emily, was the only staff member in sight. I angled toward her. Before I got there, the man stepped in front of my cart. Up close, his expression was blank, almost rehearsed. His voice was quiet and steady. "You live alone on Maple Ridge Drive, right?" My blood turned cold. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. He blinked slowly, tilting his head like he was studying a problem. "You should stop going out late," he said. My voice finally broke free. "Who are you? What do you want?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid one hand into that black pouch. Something primal in me reacted. I let go of the cart and ran. I reached Emily, breathless. "Someone's following me, he knows where I live." Her face drained of color. She reached under the counter and pressed a button, quiet but urgent. By the time we looked back, the man was gone. Security and workers searched aisles and exits. Nothing. No wet footprints. No sign of him. It was like he evaporated. When the police arrived, I explained everything: his height, coat, bag, exact words. The older officer glanced at the younger one. "We've had calls from your street," he finally said. Women reporting a tall man watching houses from a black Chevrolet with no plates. My stomach dropped. They reviewed security footage with me. Camera after camera showed me pushing my cart, but never him. No man in a yellow coat appeared anywhere. Not entering, not inside, not leaving. It didn't make sense. The officers escorted me home. They advised installing cameras, motion lights, and keeping blinds shut at night. I nodded, feeling numb. That night, I checked my locks 4 times before sitting in the living room with every light on, listening for footsteps. Sleep didn't come. The days that followed were a blur of fear disguised as normal life. At work, I helped kids find books and ran reading groups, but part of me was always listening, waiting. My co-worker, Carla, noticed before anyone else. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." I told her everything, not because I planned to, but because holding it alone felt unbearable. She insisted police add extra patrols near my home and stayed with me the night I installed motion lights and cameras. For a while, every creak in the house felt like a warning. Every pair of headlights passing my window made me freeze. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps outside on the gravel, but my cameras showed nothing except wind, leaves, and stray cats. Still, I couldn't shake his voice. "You should stop going out late." I stopped grocery shopping after dark. I parked near entrances, checked behind me when walking to my car, and avoided aisles with blind corners. People meant well when they said, "You're safe now," but safety no longer felt like a promise, only a temporary condition. Weeks turned to months. The police never found him. No new sightings. The black Chevy stopped appearing around Maple Ridge. The cameras at my house captured nothing unusual. Life resumed, but differently. Almost a year later, October again, I walked into Walmart just after sunset. It was deliberate. A test of how much power the memory still held. My chest tightened as the sliding doors opened, but the store was bright and full of families this time. No echoing aisles, no dripping footsteps. At self-checkout, Emily spotted me and smiled. "You're back." "Yeah," I said. Figured I shouldn't avoid half the town forever. We talked briefly, normal, easy conversation. Then I walked out into the cool October air with a bag of groceries and steady breathing. As I reached my car, I scanned the lot out of habit. No yellow raincoat, no black Chevy, just the ordinary rhythm of life continuing. For the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. Sometimes, late on rainy nights, I still think about him the way he appeared and vanished without a trace. Whether he meant to harm me, test me, or scare me, I'll never know. But fear taught me something I didn't expect. The danger wasn't just the man, it was the instinct to doubt myself. That night, I listened to fear, not politeness. And that decision is the reason I'm here to tell this story instead of becoming an unsolved mystery. Trust your instincts even when they don't come with proof. Your safety is worth more than being polite, quiet, or unsure. I was 22 when I first walked into Walmart with an application in my shaking hands. I'd been sober a little over 3 months, still living each day like I was one mistake away from falling back into the person I used to be. The night shift manager barely looked at me when he hired me. "You'll start Thursday," he said, handing me a vest. I nodded, pretending I deserved the second chance he didn't know he was giving me. Growing up in a trailer park taught me how to disappear before people had a reason to hurt me. My mom worked until she dropped. My stepdad drank until something set him off. I learned early that survival meant staying quiet. At 16, I ran away with a boy who promised love but introduced me to alcohol instead. Drinking numbed everything: fear, shame, memories. It became my home, my routine, my identity, until it nearly killed me. Years later, I married Daniel, a friend from high school who'd always seen something in me I couldn't see in myself. When we struggled to have kids, grief sank into every corner of our house. He worked late. I drank until I barely recognized myself. After I caused a drunk driving accident that could have cost a stranger their life, I ended up in rehab. Daniel stayed, but something in his eyes changed. He didn't yell. He didn't blame. He just stopped meeting me in the places he used to. So Walmart became my clean slate, bright aisles, quiet routine, hours that kept me busy when cravings hit the hardest. I didn't expect temptation to come walking toward me with a smile. Tyler Jensen worked maintenance. He was tall, quick with a joke, and had a way of leaning in when you spoke that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I didn't want attention, but I was lonely, fragile, and hungry for someone to tell me I wasn't failing at everything. He remembered little details about me, my favorite candy, the fact that I wrote stories when I was younger. I told myself it was harmless. Talking wasn't cheating. Laughing wasn't cheating. Sitting alone in the parking lot after shifts, sharing secrets we had no business sharing, still not cheating, I thought. But the truth is, the line I drew kept moving. One night, Tyler kissed me in the storage area behind Lawn and Garden. I should have stopped him. Instead, I leaned into it, letting the warmth swallow every part of me that still felt broken. The affair lasted 4 months. We hid in dark corners of the store, in the spaces between shelves where the cameras didn't reach. I'd go home to Daniel with guilt burning under my skin and wake up every morning pretending I could keep living 2 lives. Eventually, the guilt grew louder than both of us. One night, sitting on our couch under a lamp that made everything look too real, I told Daniel the truth. I expected shouting, maybe rage. Instead, he just stared at me with a kind of heartbreak that made me wish he'd hated me instead. "You were the one person I thought I'd never lose," he whispered before taking 2 bags and walking out the door. I didn't chase him. I didn't know how. After my marriage fell apart, Tyler changed in ways I didn't see coming. The charming coworker became someone I didn't recognize. He wanted to know where I was at all times. He criticized my friends. He made comments about what I wore to work. "I'm looking out for you," he'd say with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. When he grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave bruises, he apologized immediately and blamed stress. When he shoved me during an argument in the employee restroom, he cried afterward and said love made people crazy sometimes. When he slapped me in his apartment for not listening, he brought flowers the next day. Then came the night he pressed his hand around my throat until I couldn't breathe. When he let go, he said, "Don't make me that angry again." Somewhere deep down, I knew none of this was love, but I was too ashamed to tell anyone. I'd already destroyed my marriage. Part of me believed I deserved the chaos that came next. The breaking point came when Tyler stole my phone. He found a simple message I'd sent Daniel after months of no contact. "I hope you're okay," Tyler snapped. He threw me against a wall and screamed until I felt myself shrink. The next morning, he took intimate photos from my phone and sent them to Daniel with the message, "She belongs to me now." Daniel didn't respond, but he filed a police report. When Tyler found out, he vandalized my car in the Walmart parking lot, slashed the tires, carved "liar" into the hood. Something inside me finally ruptured. That night, shaking with adrenaline and fear and grief, I went to his apartment with a metal pipe and smashed out every window except the one in his daughter's room. I didn't want to become the person he was trying to turn me into. After that, I quit Walmart immediately. I moved into a small apartment on the opposite side of town and kept the lights on every night. I changed my number and got a job at a bookstore, quieter, calmer, filled with the smell of paper instead of fluorescent lights and chaos. I tried to rebuild the pieces of myself that still had shape, but Tyler wasn't finished. The unknown calls started first. No words, just breathing. Then the voicemails. Then footprints in the mud leading to my back door. A black glove left neatly by the welcome mat. I lived in a constant state of bracing for the next hit, the next message, the next shadow that might hold his shape. But time and distance, along with the police reports and restraining orders, eventually created a line even he wouldn't cross. The calls stopped. The footprints stopped. One day I realized I hadn't looked over my shoulder in almost a week. Healing didn't come suddenly, it showed up in the small moments. In therapy sessions where I forced myself to say the word abuse out loud. In recovery meetings where I learned that relapsing isn't limited to alcohol, you can relapse into people too. In writing again, slowly, like rediscovering a voice I buried years ago. Daniel came back into my life quietly. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't ask for explanations. He'd drop off groceries when I was sick, bring coffee after therapy, help me move apartments. Once, he said, "I don't hate you. I never did," in a voice so gentle it made my chest ache. We rebuilt trust in cautious, steady steps. We didn't promise anything big. We didn't rush. Life softened around the edges, and for the first time in years, the world felt like something I could walk through without holding my breath. Years later, After all the court dates and distance and work it took to rebuild who I was, Daniel and I adopted a baby girl. Holding her felt like being handed a future I never believed I deserved. I still have scars, some on my body, many in my memories, but I learned to live with them instead of hiding them. Now I work as a substance abuse counselor. I sit across from people who feel as lost as I once did, and I tell them something I wish someone had told me. You're not too broken to come back from this. Sometimes, late at night, I drive past a Walmart and see the bright lights echoing across the empty parking lot. I think about the girl I was when I started there, lonely, scared, trying to outrun her past. I think about the woman who nearly disappeared under the weight of someone else's control. And then I think about the person I finally became, the one who survived, rebuilt, and kept going even when she didn't know how. I don't forgive everything I've done, and I don't erase what was done to me. But I don't run from my story anymore. I live it. I own it. I'm still here. Leaving the person who hurts you is only the first step. Believing you deserve a life without fear is the one that saves you. I never planned on ending up in Pine Hollow. If things had gone differently at my last job, maybe we'd still be living in the city, still pretending everything was fine. But panic doesn't care about logic. It hit me during a late shift at the warehouse, a forklift humming behind me, the aisles spinning. I hit the brakes too late and clipped a coworker. She walked away with a bruise, but the guilt stayed burned into me. After that, the panic attacks came harder. I lost the job, bills piled up. My wife, Claire, tried to stay strong for me and for our daughter, Mia, but I saw the worry eating her alive. So when a seasonal overnight position opened at the Walmart in Pine Hollow, a quiet mountain town no one knew much about, it felt like the only lifeline left. A cheap rental cabin sealed the deal. We told ourselves the move was temporary. I wanted to believe it. On my first night there, Pine Hollow felt wrong, not dangerous, just watchful. The tree line around our cabin seemed too still, like it was waiting for something. Locals avoided eye contact. Once, I overheard an old couple whisper about those noises near the ridge. I laughed it off in front of Claire, but later, lying awake staring at the dark ceiling, I wondered what exactly I had dragged us into. Walmart was supposed to be routine, stock, clean, breathe, keep my head down and not screw up again. And at first, it was. The fluorescent lights, the polished floors, the soft hum of machinery, familiar, grounding, but even that didn't last. Carts moved on their own sometimes, not rolling from a slant, there wasn't one, but drifting like someone pushed them and then stepped out of view. The PA system would crackle after closing, not with static but with breathing, long and uneven. I'd shut it off at the panel, but the sound would return, softer, like it was coming from inside the walls. The security monitors were worst of all. Whenever I passed the toy aisle, the screens glitched, freezing on frames that looked like they were smeared with moisture. Once, the footage captured a small silhouette behind me. When I rewound the clip, it vanished. My manager, Doyle, acted like nothing was wrong. He rarely looked anyone in the eye and spoke in clipped, hurried sentences. One night, I mentioned the noises near seasonal storage, Azel 27. He went pale instantly. "Don't go near that aisle after midnight," he whispered. "Why not?" His jaw tightened. "Just don't open anything that looks old." He walked away before I could ask more. During my third week, I found the box. It sat in the middle of the floor in front of Azel 27, coated in dust, stamped with a Walmart logo the company stopped using decades ago. I figured someone dug it out of the back by mistake. When I bent to move it, I heard faint knocking, 3 soft taps from inside. My first thought was a trapped animal. But when I touched the cardboard, a child's voice whispered through it, close enough that I felt the breath on my skin. "You're late, Evie. You promised." No one alive called me that. Only my sister Hannah did. She disappeared when I was 10. We were caught in a snowstorm near a Walmart back home. I ran for help. I thought she was right behind me. She never was. Her body was never found. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, but my anxiety spiked hard and fast, the way it used to right before everything went sideways. I shoved the box into the back room and locked the door. At home, things worsened. Mia started talking to someone she said was her new friend, who likes hiding behind shelves. When I asked what the girl looked like, she said, her hair is all wet, and she wears a blue jacket. The same jacket Hannah wore the night she vanished. Claire brushed it off until she found Mia sleepwalking, holding a Walmart receipt I had thrown away earlier. None of us remembered how it got back inside. Claire stopped sleeping through the night. She would stare out the cabin window toward the woods, listening to a sound she called humming, though I heard nothing. Back at work, I tried ignoring the strange things, but they wouldn't ignore me. Lights flickered whenever I stepped into aisle 27. A cart shot toward me like someone shoved it. The old box reappeared in random aisles even after I locked it up. Security footage caught small shadows moving behind me, but only during snowfalls. The night everything broke open. A blizzard was raging outside. The parking lot was buried in white, and the wind screamed against the glass. I was alone, finishing up early, when I heard humming. It came from aisle 27. I followed the sound, each step heavier than the last. The lights above the aisle buzzed violently, then died, leaving only dim emergency bulbs blinking along the floor. The old box sat open at the aisle's end, empty. Wet footprints, small ones, led away from it. I told myself to walk out, call Doyle, get help. Instead, I followed the prints. The lights shut off behind me, one by one, until the entire store was swallowed in darkness except for the red glow of the exit sign. Then the voice came, small and trembling. "Why did you leave me? I waited for you." My knees nearly gave out. The aisles shifted around me, looping endlessly until I stumbled into the toy section. A mirror on a plastic play vanity caught my reflection, or what I thought was mine, but in the reflection, I was 10 again, holding a small hand. Hannah's, something cold wrapped around my wrist. When I turned, she stood there, hair dripping, skin pale and cracked from cold, her jacket torn. She wasn't angry, her eyes were full of hurt, of years spent alone in dark places. "I couldn't find you," she whispered. I looked. I felt everything collapse inside me. The guilt, the fear, the memory of running through a snowstorm thinking she was right behind me. I told her I was sorry. I told her I'd bring her home. Her hand softened in mine. Together, we walked toward the front doors. As we reached the exit, she let go. When I looked back, she was gone, leaving her blue jacket folded neatly on the tile, dry, clean. The blizzard outside had stopped. The next morning, police arrived after a construction worker found something behind the loading dock. Buried inside the foundation, preserved by years of cold, were the remains of a small child. DNA confirmed it was Hannah. She hadn't gotten lost in the woods. She had been there the whole time. After that, Walmart shut aisle 27 for structural issues. Employees said the haunting stopped. Mostly. Sometimes someone still heard humming when the snowfall got heavy. Sometimes a cart drifted across the floor without help. A week after we moved back home, I received a plain envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a Walmart receipt. Printed at the bottom were the words, "Thank you for not leaving me again. Evie." The timestamp read 11:20 p.m., the exact minute I first heard the knocking inside the old box. Guilt ignored becomes a ghost that never stops following you. Facing the truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to let the past finally rest. People think working nights at a big box store is just boring, but the real problem is the silence. After 10 p.m., the air feels heavier, the aisles feel longer, and every small sound turns your nerves inside out. I was 17 when I learned that stillness has teeth. My name is Ryan Dorsey, and I worked nights at the Walmart in Brenton Falls, a small Midwestern town where the parking lots were bigger than the population. I took the job because my mom needed help after the divorce. At first it was easy: stock shelves, break down cardboard, avoid the cranky customers shopping after midnight. But 2 months before winter, a shoplifter cornered me with a broken broom handle. He didn't hurt me, but the look in his eyes stuck with me. Ever since, I'd been jumpy in the aisles, especially the ones with broken lights or half-renovated ceilings. The night everything truly changed, I was breaking down cardboard near the freezers when Mia Halper, a 21-year-old new hire, rolled her damaged goods cart beside me. She was pale, shoulders tense. "Can I stick with you for a bit?" she whispered. "Yeah. What's wrong?" "There's a guy who keeps circling my aisle, pretending to shop but staring at me through the freezer doors. He did the same thing yesterday. Asked what car I drive when I get off." I lied, but her voice shook. I felt that old fear crawl up my spine, the same feeling I had when the shoplifter cornered me. I told her to stay close. We started stocking frozen dinners together. I was crouched near the bottom shelf when I saw something in the reflection of the glass door. A tall man at the far end of the aisle. broad shoulders under a gray hooded jacket. He stood perfectly still, watching her, not shopping, not moving. "Don't turn around yet," I said under my breath. She stiffened. "He's here?" "Yeah." I told her to follow me toward the back hallway. We walked casually until we were out of sight. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. "Ryan, I'm scared," she whispered. Nobody believed me. "I do," I said. "Stay here. I'll circle around." She tried to stop me, but I needed to see where he went. When I came around the opposite end of the aisle, I found him gripping a pack of tissues he definitely wasn't planning to buy. He didn't look surprised to see me. "Need help finding something?" I asked. His lips twitched into a strange half-smile. "Just watching the flow." "What?" "The flow of people." His jaw twitched with a nervous tick. "Patterns." He took a step toward me. I stood my ground, heart pounding. After a moment, he turned and walked quickly toward the garden exit, an exit that should have been locked months ago but never was. I told security. They shrugged like it was nothing. At the end of the shift, I walked Mia to her car. She thanked me, even though her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold her keys. She drove off, and I waited until she disappeared around the corner before heading to my mom's car. That's when I noticed a dark sedan parked far back in the lot, engine running, headlights off. It didn't move until I unlocked my car. Only then did it ease backward, slow and deliberate, before fading into the darkness. I didn't sleep that night. At 12:37 a.m. my phone rang. It was Mia. "Ryan, he's following me." My stomach dropped. "Where are you?" "Off Elm Road." He pulled out right after me. Same gray car. He sped up when I turned. "Keep moving," I said. "Go somewhere with lights." "There's nowhere open." "Okay, then turn randomly. Don't let him predict where you're going." I heard her breathing hard, tires squealing slightly. "He's still there," she whispered. I tried to stay calm. "Take a left. Now another. Lose the pattern." There was silence. Then she gasped. "I don't see him anymore." Relief hit me so hard I almost fell back onto my bed. "Go straight home. Call me if anything happens." She hung up. I stayed awake the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. The next day, my manager called. "Did Mia say anything to you?" "She was scared," I said. "A guy followed her. Well, she quit. Left a voicemail saying she couldn't work nights anymore." I bit back the anger rising in my throat. Because she was being watched. "We can't control what customers do off property," he said. 2 other female employees approached me that night and said a man in a gray hood had been lingering near them for weeks. Both had reported it. Both were told they were overreacting. Every detail matched. Same jacket, same staring, same questions. I felt sick. That night, I went to the garden center, the same broken exit the man had used. I stepped into the cold parking lot to clear my head. That's when I saw him again, standing near the far edge of the lights, facing the store, like he was studying it, studying us. He wasn't browsing now. He wasn't pretending. He was waiting. When he finally noticed me, he didn't flinch. He didn't hide. He just started walking toward me, slow, casual, like he had all the time in the world. I backed into the store and locked the door behind me. The door wasn't supposed to be locked from inside, but I didn't care. He reached the glass and stopped inches away. The hood shadowed most of his face, but his eyes were visible, cold, focused. He tapped the glass once with his knuckle, just once. Then he turned and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't sleep that night either. The next week dragged by like a slow nightmare. Police took a report but said without a crime they couldn't do much. Management promised to increase vigilance, but nothing changed. Cameras were old, grainy, mostly useless. The night shift became a whisper network of coworkers warning each other which aisles felt unsafe. And the man never came back. Not that we saw, but his absence didn't bring relief. It brought a different kind of fear, the kind that makes you check behind every car before unlocking your doors. Mia never returned to town. Rumor was she moved 2 hours south to stay with family. I never heard from her again. Months passed, then years, but I never forgot his face. I still think about him when I walk into a quiet store, or when someone stands too close behind me in line. I still glance at reflections in windows, still notice patterns in crowds. Because the truth is simple and terrifying. Danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks like a man pretending to shop. Sometimes it looks like someone who blends into a crowd. Sometimes it looks like the person nobody else notices, until the moment they choose someone to follow home. I wish the story had an ending where he got caught or locked up, But real life isn't like that. In real life, some threats just drift away into another town, another aisle, another set of shadows, and people like us are left hoping they never circle back. Never dismiss someone who says they feel unsafe. Instinct is often the first warning sign of danger, and believing someone early might be the thing that protects them.